Yo, Storytellers podcast again. We're back at it. Today I'm not going to be too serious. But I just want to speak about the little episode or the visit of our favorite Mr. President Cyril Ramaphosa to Donald Trump's White House. You know, with that, a lot has happened. A lot has been in the limelight. We have the G20 summit that is coming up in November, where the G20 nations are going to be coming to Johannesburg to have their little event that they have, and the next event, the corresponding event, is going to happen in the United States of America. Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa brought the G20 sets of countries last year to Johannesburg, and he was in awe at how much Johannesburg has broken down, and he was concerned and worried about how the traffic lights don't work in Johannesburg. As we understand, Johannesburg is run through a coalition party between, I might butcher this, the ANC, the DA, and I think the Patriotic Alliance. I might be forgetting one party, but it's a coalition, so there was no outright winner during the local municipality elections. I think they were in 2021. But in that regard, when he observed Joburg, to him it was very difficult to comprehend that the normal South African is living through that. And of course, they called it the bomb squad. It must have been the bomb squad. I don't know if they took it from the Springboks, but they called it the bomb squad, where they said they're initiating a team that's going to help clean up Johannesburg and make it a more livable space. Those people who know Johannesburg and understand that Johannesburg has probably the greatest description of what South Africa goes through in terms of the discrepancy between the wealthy and the poor. It's the greatest describer of what really happens in South Africa. So in that limelight, there was a dark concern from the G20 with what they had seen in Johannesburg, because it gave them a spectrum of what life in South Africa can be like at the bottom of it. Because going to Cape Town and entering Cape Town can be a very a very fictitious sense of what South Africa is like, because the nomads exist in Cape Town, and Cape Town is probably the most well-run and the most developed city that South Africa has to offer. And with all that said, they got to get a sense, and he promised that he will, improve Johannesburg now, because, I mean, our visitors are coming. Our visitors are coming. Then also at the White House, they played a video of our very favorite communistic leader, Mr. Julius Silo Malema, where he was chanting the liberation song, which speaks about killing a boer, one bullet, one boer, which I certainly don't agree with. I will say that with a sentiment, and I'm not here at all times. I will share my opinions, but it's mainly to disseminate information, because the main goal that I have is to create political literacy. I don't have all the answers. Some of the figures, statistics, and things that I might say might be incorrect. And I urge everybody in the comment section to come down and tell me their views, and also tell me any incorrect things that I might have said or things they don't agree with, so that we can all come to a very good conclusion, because we need to start getting the electorate that's not voting to vote, so that we can have a say. If you don't vote, you don't have a say, because you're not contributing to try and change the narrative and what is going on. But more on the latter. That video was played. Our very prestigious Mr. Johan Rupert was there as well. I mean, there was a lot of controversy with regards to that, Mr. Johan Rupert being at the meeting with our president. My 2 cents and view on it is that it's okay. Mr. Rupert creates the greatest amount of employment in South Africa, and I think those type of people who are instigating that amount of change, him owning Remgro, I think it's Outsurance, Richmond, I could go on and on and on, the amount of companies that Mr. Rupert has brought to South Africa. We have there's tycoons also like Robert Hershov. I don't know if it's Robert, but I know it's Rob Hershov. Of his dad started Angloval, which I think traditionally today is African Rainbow Minerals, owned by Mr. I don't know if it's Mr. or Doctor, but Patrice Motsepe. And those type of people deserve a seat at the table. because I mean they contribute positively to the economy. I there's a video on, please go check it out, on State of the Nation. Mike Sham interviewing the spokesperson of the ANC. I can't remember her name now. Mhlengi, something Mhlengi. I can't remember her name. Apologies for that. But something Mhlengi. She was asked on the Expropriation Act, because the Expropriation Act says it's an expropriation act without compensation, and her 2 cents was that with regards to the Expropriation Act, it's only infiltrated or put into action at public interest. And the question that was posed to her was, if we had an investor, which we have to speak about FDI, which is foreign direct investment, that was coming outside of South Africa and wanted to invest in South Africa, what would you tell them if they had to question you about the Expropriation Act and ask you, will my property / plant or factory not be expropriated at public interest, regarding who's in leadership and what they view as public interest? She then proceeded to say that if those people do not want to abide by everything stated, which mainly what business owners are fighting is the 30% ownership BEE concept, where 30% of your business must be given away to BEE individuals, accepted by the leading party. And also what they are fighting against is the Expropriation Act, because the Expropriation Act kind of eradicates property rights. Even as a normal South African myself, I wasn't there to see apartheid. I cannot speak about something that I was not there to experience, right? I have parents, my parents speak about it, they share their views. My dad has very strong views on apartheid and what happened, and certain tears and certain bad things that had transpired during the time. So I can't always say I'm completely against it, but one thing that I think was blurred was that with the Expropriation Act, we also put people of color in a position where they don't own anything, because the Expropriation Act is not directed at farmers. As much as it's been made to be directed at farmers, it's not. In the event, any person's land can be expropriated, and I feel that's a very sour lemon to take in when you think that there's certain parents that have worked their lives away out there to acquire assets for their children, and just have worked their bum off paying mortgages, not just one mortgage, 5, 7 mortgages every year to own property, only for the ability for someone to expropriate without compensation because of the view of public interest. It's a very sketchy rule, so I can't completely say I am for it. I understand the redress, I understand the redress and trying to redress the inequalities that were implicated by apartheid and but at the same time it also puts people of color in a position where it's not favorable. This is not even just about farmers. The Expropriation Act, okay, back to Mhlengi. She was also explaining the Expropriation Act and what it's for and what it entails. She then further went on to say that if an investor was to come in, she would tell them they should go and invest in India or in another country. And I think that's where the fundamental problem comes. Tell me down in the comment section what you think. I think in South Africa we do not need inclusive growth. We just need growth at this point. At this point, we just need growth. We need growth at least 4 to 5% in terms of the economy. Even if it includes quote unquote everybody, and we don't have a problem that it includes everybody because it will benefit everyone. We don't just need inclusive growth. We need growth in general. We do need growth in general. I don't have a stance currently that I can share about what I think about the inclusivity and all of those aspects. But what I can say is we just need growth. We need to start growing the economy. We can't be growing the population at close to 2% and growing the economy at 0.8. That indicates the discrepancies that we keep going through, where there's too many people for the amount of economic growth that takes place. If you go and assess, and I urge everybody who would listen to this, assess the foreign direct investment bill in terms of the quantity of money that has been invested by foreign individuals in South Africa over the last 2 years, it has consistently declined, and it's a whole thing of, you need the entrepreneurs for people to find employment. You need the entrepreneurs for people to find employment. And if there's too much legal red tape, where there's so many things that you need to tick, boxes that you need to tick, it becomes a problem, because the penetration into the market becomes a very, very, very difficult thing. Because if I'm a big corporation, I can sort of monopolize an economy because I'm already big, flow is there, trust is there, customer availability, access, market, everything. I can meet every rule that has been stated, the BE rule, I can meet the management rules, executive rules, tax rules, everything. But a growing business, it's very difficult for them to do that because they are still in the survival stage of the business cycle. And for them to tick all of those boxes in the process of survival sometimes proves to be a bit of a hindrance in their growth. And I would really encourage, and I hope at some point that we will understand what that entails. Just letting free market operate in a manner that's very conducive in a way. We need growth. We need economic growth. We certainly do. I fundamentally agree with that. More goods and services should be produced in each financial year in this country. Considering the last video that I made about the depth that we're in, it creates a real sad picture of where we could be going. Looking at in the past at countries like Argentina followed a socialist setup for a very long time until they crashed. Germany never lasted, under the during the time of communism, so it's proven that it doesn't work for too long. We need to free up the markets to a degree, allow people to be able to do the best that they can and operate without any problems. Then there is the last point that I want to ignite, that I've learned very well about social media and everything that goes on. The white, I do not want to say on race too much because I understand both sides of the story. I understand both sides of the story, and I'm not on any side as of currently. I'll share my view at some point once I feel like I have a concrete set on what I think. But to a certain point, from what I've come to realize from the previous election, we have certain parties. We have the MK at 14%, EFF at 9%. I can't remember, the DA is at 20%, if I'm not, and the ANC is at 41, 42, I think, 40 something, between 39 and 42. And it was the first time in 30 years that they had lost complete control over South Africa. In that, I've noticed that people's emotions consistently cloud their view of what works, their view of what happens. Because sometimes we have to look and be honest with ourselves. What has been working and what hasn't been working? I currently sometimes tend to believe there's not even a party that exists currently that can save and liberate South Africa. There's no one as of currently that speaks about just economic growth, because at the event where jobs are available, crime rate drops, and all the other social issues tend to take care of themselves. They just tend to take care of themselves. So no one is bringing that to the table. It feels like every party is serving their minority group. Every party has a bit of beauty and a bit of bad. I get the good and the ugly, but it's something that we need to think about. And more I will keep preaching political literacy. I will keep, and I'm not a this or that. I'm mainly an information disseminator. Vusi Tembegwayo said on the Pino show, I'm a knowledge merchant. And that's just it. I just want to share sort of the information I read, sort of the things that I see, and what my views are, and what I think we should be focusing on. What is important to us as South Africa. There's a lot of trigger words that get used in so many spaces where you're like, this in this case is not valid. But yeah, I think for now that's it. And I want everybody to share their view down in the comment section. I want you to tell me what you think. Tell me if there's a party you think has the right values, and tell me why. I might have my own biases against whoever and whoever, but just tell me why. Share with me. Tell me who you think really is out for the greater good and the servicing of South Africans. And yeah, that's it for me. Sinakhokonke Myeza. I'm out.